What if I tell you that with only adopting the good project management skills, or with good project management philosophies, or with those concepts, you cannot deliver a successful project? Will you trust me? But today I'm here to have this fair discussion with you, wherein you have to trust me on this fact. I'm repeating that only with the project management skills you cannot deliver a good project unless your governance is good. Sounds crazy, because governance is something which is a totally different field altogether from project management. So, what we do in project management, we have different skill sets about the project phases. We work in initiation, we work in planning, we work in execution, we work in monitoring and controlling. We talk about and we work in the closing of the project, the closure of the project. We talk about those 10 knowledge areas. All said and done, good skill set. Yes, it is required. But then when we talk about the governance, what exactly is the governance? As I always say, the five important elements of governance are: you have to ensure the fairness, you have to ensure the accountability, you have to ensure the responsibility, you have to ensure there is a transparency, and you have to ensure that your project or the organization is having the sustainable achievements or the sustainable philosophies in place. Now, when we realize these are the important things, you will agree with me, these are the important factors which has to be there in a project. Apart from the project management skills, we also have to understand one thing: putting these five elements in place, it needs a skeleton, it needs a structure, like how you are going to put them in place. I call that structure as the governance architecture. So, unless we have this governance architecture in place with those five built in elements, you cannot guarantee a delivery of a successful project. Trust me. Now, when we talk about this governance structure, how do you ensure that your structure is complete? How do you know that your governance structure is complete? As I said, those five principles are there, and there are five stages, the five steps of creating this governance structure. And trust me, with these five stages, your structure can be a robust one, wherein you can ensure that your project is delivered successfully. First element of this governance structure is your decision layers. At what levels the decisions are arranged. Now, typically in an organization, these decision layers work at three levels: at the strategic level, at the executive level, and at the execution level. In the language of project management, you can say that this work on a portfolio level, in a program level, and in a project level. When we talk about the strategic level, the portfolio level, you are more of a project selection, loss and profit, the capex decisions, strategic alignment decisions, company vision, mission, those things. When you come to the executive level, you are more into the program management, wherein you talk more about the resource deployment, the optimization of the resources, the output of the resources, and the alignment, the ensuring the compliances to your strategic alignments, strategic goals, strategic decisions. And when you come to a project level decision, they involve your day-to-day activities, your vendor management, your subcontractor management, your human resource, and other things. So this is the first framework of the governance out of the five. Second important framework is the escalation cadence. Now, this word cadence is a bit useful here. Escalation is a normal practice. We know that in projects, when we work, matters have to be escalated. You need to escalate your problems, you need to escalate the risks, you need to escalate the issues, you need to escalate the problems Unless you escalate, you cannot have a solution of that. But then, what are the metrics of those escalations? That means, what should be the threshold of an escalation of a risk? What should be the trigger point? What should be the route of escalating the issue? How fast and what should be the turnaround time for any person or any individual to respond to that kind of escalative issues? So this comes under the second element of your governance structure, which we call as the escalation cadence. Third element to create this structure is the independent challenge function. Now, what is this is very simple to understand. When we work as a team, we keep on working, we keep on appreciating each other's efforts, and we keep on appreciating the achievements. But then, periodical review by a third person, by a third party of your performance is something which needs to keep giving you challenges from time to time. You may not be right all the time. So, unless you have this third element, which we call the independent challenge function, you cannot have the transparency in place. I never know where I did mistakes unless a third party or a third expert, third person expert comes and highlights that look, this is where you have to improve there, or there is a scope of improvement. Fourth important aspect of this governance architecture is the risk ownership matrix. Every individual team member should know that this is the risk allocated to me. This is the risk owned by me. Unless you have this risk ownership matrix clarity, you will have issues and there will be delays, because when a risk comes up, the response has to be immediate and the response has to be pre-planned. It has to be there in your books that how is that you're going to respond to that particular issue or the risk. Fourth is, we always talk about the accountability. When we create a RASI matrix, the accountability is fixed to the individual, to every head of the department, to the leader. Accountability is known. These are the sets of accountabilities allocated to a particular person. With these five elements, your governance architecture is framed. And when we do this, or when we feel the necessity of doing this, you also have to understand that that is the point wherein we are actually moving from project management leadership to a governance leadership. Understand the difference here. From a project management leadership, you need to move to the governance leadership, and in order to move that governance leadership, you must have the governance architecture in place, the structure in place, and in order to have that architectural structure in place, you must have these five elements in place. And with these five elements, you have a better control of your project. So as I said, when we talk about the project management philosophies, it is not sufficient for us to control a mega project with only those project management philosophies. You also have to have a clarity about your governance structure, so your governance elements periodical reviews. The meetings should not be a ritualistic meetings. They should be a meetings to have total insight into these five steps of your governance structure, which will give you a lot of insight about the health of these elements. And unless you have all these elements healthy, you can't avoid issues at your project. Especially for mega projects, this governance structure is very, very important, because when we talk about governance in mega projects, it not only ensures the delivery of the project, the successful delivery of the project, it also helps the project in order to boost up the morale of the team members. It also helps in creating that better environment for all the stakeholders. And at the end of the day, this skeleton of governance, this architectural structure of this governance is the only way and mean by which you can ensure that your project, your program, or your portfolio is aligned to your strategic goals, your strategic targets, or the organization's strategic mission and vision. So, I used to call this as a governance architecture, a very useful structure. Whenever you have a need to review your governance of the organization or the project or a mega project, check these five elements. If any of these elements are missing, there is something wrong and you need to work on it. With this, we'll take a break here. As usual, I always repeat, let's join hands. Let's make this YouTube community, which is named as PPM with Rajdeep, rich, and let's grow this community for the benefit of all, for the sharing of our ideas, for sharing of our wisdom, for sharing of our lessons learned. And let's make this platform a very strategic and very useful one. Wish you a very happy day. Wish you a very pleasant day ahead. Bye bye. Take care.